Another weekend is here, and once again, there's no time to game. So, if you've been keeping up with the series, you know that every week I pick a game at random, and I just sit down, give you my thoughts on it. I tend to focus on retro stuff that I can take on the go on my handheld, and it's essentially just one, like, it's like a big video game book club, essentially, just give you my recs. And hopefully, the idea is to get to try stuff that I've never tried before and just dig around for gems and stuff like that, as they call them. So, as you might have seen in the last episode, I was going to give Custom Robo for the N64 a shot this week, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't get it to run smoothly. Like, just the audio was really stuttery, the graphics would be all weird, and I gave it a couple of days of messing around before I was like, dang, okay, like I'm wasting too much time on this. But if you have a TrimUI Smart Pro and you're able to get, really N64, but especially Custom Robo running on this thing nicely, please leave me a comment. I'd love to give it a shot still, but until I can troubleshoot that, if I get a chance to, I will not be able to anyways for this series. Hopefully one day soon. I've spent a couple of days already on this trying to mess around, so what can I do instead? And so I decided to, instead of picking a game at random, to give you my current Game Boy obsession. So when I'm not playing something for this channel or something that's very story heavy, like I try to keep my games limited to 3 at a time, this is typically what I'm playing at, whether it's in the restroom or like at the checkout lane. I'm usually playing Cave Noire for the original Game Boy. And so this game was something that I saw recommended a lot when I was looking into stuff to play from overseas. I never made it over here. And a lot of people for the original Game Boy really spoke highly of this, which I was honestly really pleasantly surprised. I'll tell you this much, it is in Japanese. And so there are English patches for it, which you're welcome to do. It's maybe a good experience to just, like, if you're interested in playing more stuff from Japan, it's cool to get to learn how to patch things. It's not too hard, just a little bit of reading and getting used to. But if for some reason you don't want to deal with all of that, it's no big deal. You should be able to just jump into this as is. I can tell you straight out that I love this game because it's made for dummies like me. Hopefully, like, this is a part where I'll try to put some footage. As you can see, it's very much like this classic, like, fantasy dungeon crawler type of style. So you're overhead, you got your little guy, I named mine's Pentaro after me and my wife's dog. And you basically get to pick between 4 different dungeons. So each dungeon has a different objective. I could list them straight out right here. Like, the first one is about slaying a certain amount of monsters. The second is about finding a certain amount of gold. The third one is about filling your inventory with these specific items called orbs, which they're basically useless. And so the trick is to, like, you basically got to find these things and have them fill up your inventory and make it out of there alive. And then the fourth one is classic, find the fairy in the cage, and the fairies, like, will be scattered throughout the level with the key somewhere else. And so you have to clear a certain amount of fairies before you exit too. Every time you clear a level, essentially just the number on the objective or whatever goes up, So if you were in, like, the kill a certain amount of monsters one, that will go up every time you beat it. I started off, for example, mine's like around kill 3 monsters, and now at the current difficulty that I have it, I think it's up to, like, you need to slay 10 monsters in order to beat this level. So it's extremely simple. You straight up get all of the controls right from the get-go. Again, it's turn-based. I know I said dummies like me, but it does help with, like, very much on the go stuff, like pick up and play stuff, because it's like you can really stare at the screen, stare at what monsters are on there, what obstacles are on there, what's in your inventory, and the world essentially won't move until you do. So almost like kind of board game status, as soon as you walk around, the rest of the board will also move, or whatever it is like that is supposed to happen will happen. So typically, for example, it'll be like monsters. If you see a monster walking back and forth in a straight line, they'll stay still as long as you are, but as soon as you move, they get to make their move too. And so you want to strategize around that. And sometimes I get impatient and I move around real fast and I end up screwing myself over anyways. But that's kind of what the strategy in Cave Noire comes down to, is that you learn what causes what, like what the behavior of each monster is. Like, you start to learn their path, like their pathfinding or whatever. You start to learn what each obstacle does. You start to learn what each item does. And I think overall, aside from that, you do have a couple of stats you got to pay attention to. I think the most important one is your attack, because that determines how hard you hit the other monsters if you decide to to go for it, sometimes the best strategy is to kill the monster. And in one of the dungeons, it's literally the objective, I guess. There's a defense stat, which is pretty important, especially in the later levels. You get the tank more hits, so that's cool. And then the other, arguably, maybe more important than the attack, actually, now that I think about it, is the luck one, which, from my experience, just affects like the type of items and how fast you find them, which is going to be your bread and butter every time you enter a dungeon. At the very start of each level, you'll get spawned in with a random 4. Almost always, I think, like a healing item, and then usually the other 3 tend to vary. But whatever you find in treasure chests as you go along the way, you'll get better stuff the deeper you go. You'll get stuff that you'll want to hang on to, and like sometimes the best strategy is just to like be very liberal, like just continue to use your stuff as you go down deeper and deeper. But sometimes the better strategy would be to save and hang on to it, and maybe even avoid conflict if you're able to. So I'm actually not even like humongous on roguelikes personally anyways. And so I went into this pretty blind. Like I didn't really know what this game was about, just that it was very recommended. And I was pretty excited for it because, obviously if you're doing retro gaming on the go, what better like options than like the actual games designed to take on the go. Typically, like I do like me a good console game and stuff like that. Like my little device can run the PlayStation, but I tend to play those more like in a chill setting, maybe like a little bit in the morning in my car when everything's calm. I used to be the type, for example, if it was handheld stuff, like I would bust out Tetris every now and then, but Tetris again is designed for that. It's like really easy to be like, okay, we'll fucking boop bop for like a good 30 seconds to a minute, like a quick round, and that's what's awesome about it. Cave Noire is the same deal because of the style of gameplay that it has, because the rules are very clear. It's like 2 buttons. B is like the, I guess, kind of action button. You can hit it, for example, when you're sitting still, and like you'll like make the board move around you, like it'll count it as a step. So sometimes, like say like you're trying to avoid a monster, sometimes the better strategy is just to hit B while you're in place and watch it move around and get to learn its pattern. And then A is kind of more of like an interact button. So it's like if you want to attack things, if you want to open up chests and stuff like that, that's more of like your like interacting. So same as like the last Game Boy game that I reviewed, I really love games where it's like the core mechanics are super clear. Like you're not going to get extra controls or anything like that. The variety really does come down to like the types of items that you'll come across, if anything, but really it just comes down to like how good you are at managing your inventory and like how good you are at like learning the different monster behaviors, the obstacles, and just strategizing around that depending on your objective. Because again, if your goal is to like kill all the monsters, like kill as many monsters as possible. For me, for example, like I'll obviously avoid the super strong, like beefy monsters if I'm able to, because numbers wise, it's just like you're better off killing the small, weaker ones when you get a shot, and then just being really smart about not getting hit until then. And so it's really cool because it's all set up like the same way every time, more or less. Like nothing really gets that more complicated. You just get better at understanding the game. So like one crazy thing, for example, that this game like would show me by default was the idea of like these secret tunnels and stuff that you could get into, and it never explains it, but sometimes your little guy will have like an exclamation mark next to a wall and you can run into the wall. And I was always confused because when I started it, like if you ran into the wall, your little guy makes a face, and I was like, okay, well maybe that's just because like that's like the pressing B in place function, like that makes the monsters move around when you run into a wall. But it turns out whenever you see the exclamation mark, that means there's a secret entrance nearby. So that's actually like the game telling you like, hey, like you see this little like unique sprite that we gave your little warrior guy, give that a shot when you see the exclamation mark. And then I just put 2 and 2 together and found out like, oh shoot, like that's how you open up secret tunnels. I didn't know there was secret entrances and stuff in each room. And so it's very like almost Zelda-like in that sense. And it's super satisfying when you get to learn how like certain monsters tick. Like, okay, like there's these like Reaper guys, for example, that I couldn't figure out for a little bit. And it turns out that they'll only move when you walk in their pathway. Like, so if one is across the other side on the screen, until you walk almost like Pokemon, like in its line of sight, it won't budge, and then it'll start flying in that direction until it hits a wall. And so you can use that kind of information to your advantage. There's certain items where it's like an item called a boulder, for example, for the longest time that I could not figure out, like, why would I ever want this, until I come across like certain types of monsters that are humongous that you don't want to fight. That the bigger stuff tend to have really extreme, like really simple like behavior, like AI. And so a good example is using that boulder in order to freeze one of those bigger monsters in place. And so now it's just essentially shut down the threat and you can check out the rest of the move real calmly. I will say though, I do have save states available to me, but I really don't like to use them on this game. I almost forgot too, like the whole point of this series too is part of it is is whether I beat the game or not. I mean, I'll tell you straight out, no. Even if I had started from, I think, like where I was, I think it was like Wednesday when I started like preparing my review for this, and it's Saturday today. So in a couple of days' time, I might have been able to do it, but I didn't beat it. Basically, is what I'm saying. Hello, this is Vic from the future. So good news, we're all, ripped, rich, beautiful here in the future. Just came here to tell you that. And literally while editing this video, I took a Cave Noire break. Lower the volume on this. But yeah, I took a quick break to play Cave Noire of all things, and check it out. I mean, these are the credits. I think you can still keep playing, but I mean, that's it. I mean, I see credits, so that has to mean that technically we did beat Cave Noire. I mean, I guess I'll just add this in like while editing this, but I just figured it was really funny that I ended up playing this anyways. And so, hey, this counts as a clear. I'll take the win, but back to the video. But in any case, I have access to save states, but I tend to really not use them because I really like the idea of being able to clear each level in one sitting, if that makes sense. So sometimes I will freeze it exactly where I'm at just so I can pick it back up where I left off. But I don't like to save state basically in order to help me beat the level easier, because it's just not satisfying to me, the nature of it. Very random, almost like a roguelike. So it's kind of like, okay, I won't use them like that. Once you get used to the idea of how the controls work, how every item works, it's really easy to just hop on in on a quick round. And like the harder levels will take you a little bit, maybe like a good, if I were to add it all up all the way, and you were actually really trying and being strategic, it could take up to like 10, maybe even 15 minutes on the higher difficulties. But there's no harm in just hopping in, clearing like maybe half of one of the harder ones and then jumping back in later. It's a really excellent game to take on the go. Style wise, I mean, it's awesome. I love like the old school, like pixel art, like just fantasy type of stuff. If you're a fan of Game Boy graphics, you'll have a good time. I have mine set up to look like one of the original like Game Boys from like straight up when they had like the really not so great screens that like would get kind of fuzzy or not clear at a certain angle, like green tint. I think it's DMG is the type of like screen, or the way that we refer to that one. Maybe it's just the original Game Boy. Like, I don't know. You'll know the screen when you see the footage, basically. And so I have it set up to like straight up look like a Game Boy when I pull it out, and it's just like so satisfying. And it really sucks me in. I can't describe it, like no feeling. It's so simple, I know, but the pixel art, it just gives it like this very board game, like it's something that just takes me back to literally playing like freaking RPGs, like old school when I was like freaking 7, 8 years old. And they didn't really click with me as a kid, but for some reason this one does, although I guess it's technically not an RPG now that I think about it. But graphically, it's awesome. All of the songs are great. Like, now that I know how this game ticks a lot more, like, I mean, I will, play my own background noise, or I will play it at 0 volume somewhere in public, but there's really no harm. Like, it's kind of rare, I guess, for what I'm saying, for a Game Boy game to be like, the soundtrack kind of bumps. Like, I really don't mind this soundtrack at all. Like, I'm just going to leave it playing and stuff while I play, and it actually, like, just brings me into the experience 100%. It makes it just this very, like, addictive, arcadey type of experience when you get the combination of just, like, the old school sprites, the fantasy setting, the sound effects, the filtering that I have on my device. It just makes for super pleasant, like just on the go, just handheld. And so for me, I think that combination of like the graphics and the sound effects, the old school feeling, the fantasy setting, the actual simple gameplay that's really conductive to like pick up and play type of style, diving in deeper to find out what new like terrain and obstacles, monsters are available, new types of items are available. The addictive nature of like when the run is starting to go completely in your favor, and then suddenly you'll make like, typically it's on me, it's usually like a dumb mistake, and you'll get whacked on the head for all of your health and lose your entire run. I can see why people like roguelikes so much, and I may have to give one of the more modern roguelikes a shot after playing this. But this is such a simple, like, I guess low stakes roguelike. Like I never feel like super bummed out after I lose in this game, which is pretty rare for a game, and I think is a good sign of a game that's just really fun and really addictive. Is if you can lose it around and laugh it off and have a good time still and be eager to hop right back in. I think that's a really extremely like effective game loop that you got going on there. I really don't know what the story is about, truth be told. I know I try to get into that kind of stuff too, but there really isn't much to speak of. I can only speak on like, is the vibes good? It's awesome. Yes, 100%. It's all there. If you love Game Boy, you'll love this. If you love fantasy, you'll love this. If you love roguelikes, I think you'll appreciate this. Anyways, is the gameplay fun itself? Yeah. I mean, it's a really nice sweet spot where it's like difficult, but it's not like brain teasing, it's not like gonna break your head trying to figure this out. It's just a matter of like, what's the best strategy here? And again, it always feels like it's your fault when you lose, and you can always take your time. And there is a certain amount of luck for sure. Like, I mean, the items and stuff that you come across in the dungeons will be at random. The stuff you got at the beginning will be at random. Pretty much everything is at random. Like, I did start to recognize certain patterns, certain room layouts, certain monsters that would always appear in certain types of dungeons. But once you learn how they tick, I found anyways personally that I could almost always find a way to still navigate it. I did get it translated, of course, but it really just makes things more simple to read. Honestly, I think I figured out a lot of the gameplay and a lot of how to navigate the maps and stuff like that just by experience. Like, you just get better and better at it every time that you're into like a dungeon, which again, if you like roguelikes, you know the experience for sure. If I had to give this a number, I would give it straight up like a 10 out of 10 handheld game experience for sure. Like, I do have this show where I review stuff and stuff like that, but outside of this, like, this is one of my big 3 games at the moment that I'll go to, and I'll just straight up like I'm like, yeah, I got a little bit of time, hooked me up with a quick round of Cave Noire. And it's crazy that this is a Japan only thing, but like I said, I think you don't need it. A lot of the learning about the game just comes from experience and diving right into it. So I would absolutely recommend this. This is a great game to take on the go. It's super straightforward. I think if even like, whether you're more casual or like just more of a hardcore, I guess, or whatever type of gamer where you really want a challenge, I think this game really nails both of those camps. It's not too complicated, so it's absolutely worth like a quick checkout and see if you like it or not. But if you're looking for like a really great, if you're really into games and you're looking for a great handheld experience, this will absolutely scratch that itch. Cave Noire never came over here, so this is one of those that I was extremely happy to run into, because it's like, dang, yeah, I would have never played this otherwise if it weren't for retro gaming. And I mean, I wish I had like more words. Like, I don't know if you ever had that experience where you really want to gush about something, but it's just one of those where it's like, I've told you as much as I can. I thought it was a great experience. I don't want to sound like I'm just exaggerating and like overdoing it at this point, but I really did love this game. I really would 100% recommend it. This might be my favorite game, I guess, I would have featured so far in this little series of mine. And I just wouldn't have expected so much. Like, yeah, again, I mean, I did translate this, but it was just on people's recommendation online, so I didn't really expect it to be something that I would like equate to the same level of, not addiction, but the same level of eagerness as I would for like a quick round of Tetris, or the big one for me is Puyo Pop. I will always be down for a round of Puyo Pop. So this is honestly up there in that same little ranking of handheld type of experiences, quick puzzle games and stuff like that. Like, this is up there for sure. Like, I'm always down to just boot this up and play a quick round. But other than that, I think that'll call it for this episode. We'll go ahead and roll our next week's game right now. Again, please, if you know how to get N64 running on the Trim UI Smart Pro nicely, please let me know. Let me know how to do it. Could lead to me figuring out how to run custom Robo, and once I get that running smoothly, you know what, I'm definitely down to give it an episode on this series for sure. But other than that, here's this is the I'm gonna film that part separately, next week's game that I'm rolling. I don't think I got any further thoughts, but if you did watch up to this point, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. You're welcome to like and subscribe. It It would really help out the channel. If you got any similar type of games, especially handheld games that give you that scratch that same itch, let me know in the comments because Cave Noire is mine. Puyo Pop's another one. Tetris is another one. I'm always looking for these types of experiences because it's, sometimes you don't need a big story, big crazy plot game. Sometimes you just want these little quick bite-sized pick up and play experiences. And hey, maybe that's what this show strength is about. So other than that, I'll catch you guys very soon.